Welcome to Slash Forward. It's hard to imagine that a film centered around a high school dance could be one of the most brutal movies ever made. Luckily, you don't have to imagine it. We're gonna live it right now. Aside from depictions of utter brutality, Robin McLevy provides one of the most disturbing portrayals of a psychopathic killer ever in her character Lola Stone. But what could motivate someone to participate in such sick acts of degradation starting at such a young age? We're going to take a look and find out as we open on a father-son duo out enjoying the open road and vibing hard. But playful banter can be distracting to inexperienced autonauts, which is not recommended, and we soon see why. 6 months later and school's out for summer. The post-accident Brent is so addicted to the way weed makes him feel that he's planning on skipping Holly's post-dance party. Needing a wingman, Jamie tries to lure him back in by offering to provide a free condom. But then Mia, the goth girl of his dreams, walks by, and when she agrees to go to the dance with him, let's just say he'd be more comfortable if he were already wearing the condom. In the lull, Lola gathers up the courage to ask Brent to go to the dance with her, but he's already going with Holly, and he chuckles to lighten the mood and let her down easily. Always a wise policy. He and Holly get hot and heavy in the old jalopy and play this silly little game where he entices her to go further in exchange for revealing who asked him to the dance. They're so engrossed in this tit-for-tat that they don't even realize the answer to his riddle is standing right outside watching. She drops him off to get ready and will circle back at 7. No, yeah.
I love you.
It was Lola Stone. That's who asked him, since you were wondering. What? Okay, bye. Later, in his dark room with his dark thoughts, he has to break it to his poor mother that the newly licensed Holly will be driving him that evening. Devastating news for a family torn asunder by a prior motor vehicle accident. While Holly works to make herself perfect for her man, he storms off, gripping his self-harm razor until he arrives at his favorite spot to free solo. He likes to climb up and imagine what it would feel like to just let go, and the cliff nearly makes that choice for him. Once he comfortably feels solid earth below him again, he goes off to smoke a bowl. Encumbered by teenage problems, he fails to notice the tradie sneaking up behind him with a stinky rag, which he uses to render Brent unconscious. Elsewhere, Jamie's employing every aerosol method possible to mask his stink, while psyching himself up like Dirk Diggler.
You're a fucking rock star.
However, he fails to embody this sentiment, and his awkward greeting delays them long enough for Mia's father to come out to snap a photo. Then they all learn that Jamie's got a case of Candy Crush before the formalities are finalized. Knowing he had plans for later, Carla tries to find Brent at his favorite meditation spot for when he's sad. Then when Holly comes calling, she arrives after her and confirms that neither of them has heard anything from him since earlier that afternoon. They continue trying to reach him until their faithful dog returns. This warrants a call out to Dan with confirmation that this isn't just another cry for help, as the dog has been mortally wounded. Our kidnapper makes a quick stop to collect some roadkill with his bare hands while on his way toward his darkened shanty, to show us what kind of sicko we're dealing with. He then pops the trunk for sweet Lola, who has a moment of panic when Brent's heartbeat is too faint to hear, but it's there. With this new acquisition, Lola immediately begins updating her scrapbook of sexual conquests, all lovingly provided to her by Daddy, who really wants nothing but the best for his girl, even if it seems at times that nothing could stand in replacement of a father's love for his daughter. When Brent comes to, he's all tuxed up, which is a bonus, but he finds that he's sharing company with a friendly home lobotomy experiment, which is not ideal. From this point on, he will be taking the role of supporting cast. So they go ahead and calm his dulcet chords with a soothing injection of bleach.
We can hear you!
Leaving us to wonder how one learns to do that. Then they set right in on getting their memories captured for safekeeping. Back at the dance, we find Jamie and Mia making their own party in the parking lot, and it's a rager. Worried he might not be offering enough to his date, Jamie asks if they should go in, but this offends his love. Meanwhile, at the dinner table, they've arranged for a feast, and as it unfolds, the power dynamic is laid bare as Lola constantly pressures Daddy to choose between her and his bride, putting his behavior in check despite the fact that she's free to force feed whomever she'd like at any level of sensuality. Brent's not really into this, but repercussions for rejection promise to be severe, so he politely affirms the quality of her drumstick. Then, only after cleaning off her greasy little digit does she allow him the privilege of taking a wee, but not in the way most of us would consider conventional. As a result, performance anxiety takes hold, but he finds that he's deep in it now, as failure to urinate carries with it the penalty of getting nailed. Again, not in a conventional sense. After producing,
It's crying.
her crass nature earns her a donkey kick, after which he attempts to kangaroo hop his way out the door. In the commotion, he manages to slide under the car. He takes a moment to use his razor to remove his leg restraints, but this does him little good, as when the car is backed up, it leaves him sitting in the headlights like an overturned tortoise. When the momentary shock wears off, Brent then sprints like a tortoise down the drive and up into a tree to avoid getting run down. Lola and her papa then have great fun trying to gently coax him down with some rocks. This time, they don't underestimate him and reinforce his bindings by also nailing his feet to the ground with knives. This creates some strife in their burgeoning relationship, as she desperately wants him to cry about it, but he is a child of pain, and this just proves to him that he's alive. Back at the house, Dan returns from his search of the woods with little more than some additional evidence that Brent has gone missing, so no help at all. Settled back into their routine, they reminisce about fond memories of years gone by, eventually settling on a familiar image that carries significant meaning to Brent in particular. It's the one that got away. But they reach the present day, which means it's time for Phase 2. Phase 2, of course, consists of carving Brent up with a dirty fork and then salting the wounds to keep them from getting too moist. And they seem to really get off on mocking him, which is unnecessarily rude. If he had played his cards right, he could have been getting shotgunned outside the dance like Jamie, or lamenting his absence back at his house like Holly, who finds a card that confirms he's making emotional progress, or his mom, who is staring off into the middle distance. Instead, he's forced to watch as Lola is deemed queen of the dance, and after sufficient obligatory celebration,
Blow your whistle, King.
she is crowned. Back on the dance floor, their time is somewhat limited as Mia gets caught up in the moment and takes a handful of Jamie's crotch. He hangs on for dear life while all the normies gawk, hoping for a show, but his school administrator ejects them from the dance floor to avoid any potential slip and fall claims. At the other dance, the young lovers sway to and fro as far as the foot knives will allow, while Papa hits him with the whimsical glitter shower. But deep down, Lola knows that he's not gonna be the one for her. So, as she and Daddy gaze into one another's eyes with a forbidden longing, lamenting the difficulty of finding another like him, Brent fishes the razor blade out of his back pocket where it had been tucked away. Then, somewhere out there, beneath the pale moonlight, Dan is turning in for the night, Holly is allowing herself a moment to grieve, and Jamie and Mia are informed that the intent was for them to leave the school grounds entirely before boning down. Brent gets a little BTS of his fate when they open a basement door to reveal a gaggle of bleach-induced squawkers desperately looking for some of that sweet, sweet road meat. Then, Daddy gets out his toolbox to begin instruction. This is to be Lola's first time performing their surgical obedience procedure. It is a skill to just barely breach the skull, but he encourages her to steady herself, and soon enough, they're peeking at your boy's frontal lobe. The last step is to drip a little boiling hot water in there and let it steep for a few minutes. But they don't have a funnel, so Princess asks her experienced father to ream out the hole for her a little bit. He damn near burns the clutch out, giving Brent the adrenaline rush he needs to break free with a wide-arcing slash. Despite the tremendous amount of damage he's taken so far, he goes into absolute gorilla mode on Poppy, which is something they are not at all accustomed to. This is further demonstrated by Lola's ineffectiveness when not in total control of the situation. And then, if there is any doubt about what's going on in the basement, Father is flung down, after which the boys commence to feasting on his tender face meat. The distraction caused by this gruesome scene results in Brent finding his way in there as well. As Brent attempts to fend for himself, Lola takes a moment to reflect upon these new developments and stands in quiet meditation. Back in the neighborhood, Jamie brings Mia home after a long and eventful evening. She goes to bed sad as we see the family is haunted by a familiar trauma stemming from Dan's inability to locate missing teens. Back in the pit, it's revealed that Brent has managed to come out on top. Afterward, he attempts to use his still functional brain to assess the surroundings. During the lull, Lola decides to use this opportunity to find closure in regard to her relationship with her mother. A surprising turn in that she is now officially a killer. Once the brain fog is cleared, Holly then has a minor epiphany.
Lola's done. That's who asked me.
Good thing they made a sex game out of it for easier remembering. And since he still has quite a bit to prove, Dan accepts this crumb and rushes out to the residence. A quick peek through the window confirms something illegal or fun has definitely been going on in there, warranting entry and further investigation in either case. Brent does his best to attract attention, but he ends up taking too much of it, putting Dan well off his game and ending any hope of resolving his character arc. Lola then notifies him
I'm going to your house now.
that she's off to run some errands. She conspicuously proceeds down the road where Holly, taking matters into her own hands, freely delivers herself. With a quick hazard to get her to stop, Lola is soon upon her. However, again, she proves to have limited capabilities without the assistance of her father. Back at the house, Brent has built himself a pyramid of corpses to hoist himself up to ground level. Then he races off in the cruiser going 140 down a rural 2-lane. God damn! Now, with some prior experience under his belt, he is able to avoid Holly without crashing. To Lola's detriment, the two take a moment to soak in this reunion and then see that Lola is bound and determined to stick someone. Brent remorselessly backs up into her, putting an end to the immediate ordeal, which he caps off with a touching reunion with his mother, rather than a trip to the ER for antibiotics. His breasts have got to be tender right now. It's unfortunate that their pent-up love resulted in the imposition of so much misery, but in some cases, a forbidden love must remain unrequited. Check out this video next to see another pair of freakos who should have never been allowed near each other. And now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.